Dissertation defense, a qualitative case study examining staff perceptions of restorative practices implementation in a suburban school district by John Barbadeer. Overview. Writing up a dissertation requires intensive planning, devotion, and structuring of the written work. This work by Bombardier 2021 is one such example of a highly organized dissertation. The study sought to assess the perception of middle and high school staff regarding the implementation of restorative practices, staff buy-in, and their impact on school climate and building positive relationships. Results of the study indicated that the staff had positive experiences during the implementation. Majority of participations called for ongoing professional development to make the restorative practices program successful, Bombardier 2021. Also, the majority did not buy into restorative practice and still believed on the need to hold students accountable for their individual discipline issues. However, the study found out that the implementation of restorative practice improved school climate and facilitated building of positive relationships. This essay summarizes the dissertation by Bombardier by detailing the importance of the various sections and data contained therein. The purpose of this introduction is to describe a broad background related to the problem under question and ends by providing a specific problem statement. Schools have in the past used punitive measures to manage discipline issues. However, the punitive measures are reported to have harmful outcomes for the students. They also escalate minor discipline issues to more serious incidents. As such, some schools have adopted restorative practices processes to address rule violations, enhance school climate and behaviors. Restorative practices are known to foster positive relationships and allow people to respond in ways that healing rather than coercive. Bombardier, 2021. The background section analyzes literature related to the research problem. While research on the application of restorative practice in school is still emerging, studies have already established the potential of restorative practice to improve school climate, relationships between teachers and students, foster a community culture, and help students from minority groups stay in school. At the international level, studies focused on restorative practice programs have noted positive outcomes for teachers, students, parents, and all community members. They give students the opportunity to change their behaviors, give them a voice, and instills a culture that values everyone in the community. Bombardier. This is as opposed to the punitive discipline measures that promote parent apathy, aggravate bullying, and pushes students out of school. In this study, the researchers studied the implementation of restorative practice, staff buy-in, positive relationships, and school climates as expressed by staff members from a suburban middle and high school. Problem statement. According to Robertson Hires 2019, this section explains the issues as it exists in practice or theory, hence the need to study it. In most schools, punitive discipline is often prioritized in dealing with school discipline issues. The punitive methods and zero tolerance approaches are applied disproportionately and most of the time end up affecting students of color. For schools that are eager to respond to discipline issues in a proactive and humanistic manner and create positive communities, they should implement restorative practice. Restorative practices are known to manage conflicts in better ways that repair harm and promote development of positive relationships. Purpose statement. The purpose statement is to state the intent of the study and represents the essence of the study. Robertson Hires 2019. The purpose of this study was to gather and analyze the perceptions of middle and high school staff regarding the implementation of restorative practice, staff buy-in, and the impact of restorative practice on school climate and the creation of positive relationships. Understanding the perceptions and experiences of the staff will help inform whether or not the implementation of restorative practice should be replicated in other schools. Additionally, the study contributes to the growing body of research regarding the use of restorative practice in schools. Theoretical framework. According to Collins and Stockton, 2018, theoretical framework serves as a lens used to view the research problem. It explains the major things to be studied and the relationships among them. While this study by Bombardier lacks this section and is not grounded in any theory, it has concepts and subconcepts related to restorative practice as the main topic. For instance, the study has described issues surrounding exclusionary discipline and restorative circles and how they relate to restorative practice implementation in schools. Also, school discipline and climate are two concepts that are prominently featured throughout the study. Methodology. The methodology section describes the procedures used to conduct the study. Bombardier, 2021, employed a qualitative case study approach. The researcher considered the approach as appropriate based on the fact that restorative practice implementation is a contemporary issue that has real-life context. Also, a case study approach would enable the researcher to do deep analysis of the data collected. Moreover, deep exploration of an issue requires careful interpretation of the data. Hence, the appropriateness of case study methodology to examine staff perceptions regarding restorative practice implementation. Research question. This section lists the questions that guide the study, which ultimately provide the format for presenting the results. Robertson Hyatt, 2021. The dissertation in question has 3 research questions. What are staff perceptions regarding restorative practice implementation? What are staff perceptions regarding buy-in to restorative practice? And what are staff perceptions regarding restorative practices implementation? And the impact on fostering positive relationships with students and school climate. Bombardier, 2021, page 7. Significance of the study. This is a detailed part of the dissertation and explains the worth of the research. Bombardier's study is important in that it provides school districts with strategies they can use to implement restorative practice for purposes of addressing discipline issues. By assessing the perceptions of the staffs, it reveals common themes that will inform schools on the do's and don'ts when implementing restorative practice. Schools stand to gain from this study by learning how they can use positive approaches to repair fractured relationships and addresses discipline issues. Implementation of restorative practice in schools is beneficial because it gives students the opportunity to understand how their behaviors affect others and how they should behave to facilitate high-quality learning in school. Variables or phenomenon. Robertson Hyatt, 2019, note that it is essential for any research to identify the variables and phenomenon. Since this also helps shape the purpose of the study, the dissertation in question focuses on the restorative practice phenomena. As a qualitative case study, the variables under consideration are implementation of restorative practice, staff buy-in, school climate, and positive relationships. Population and sample selection. This section describes participants and the method used to select them. When conducting this study, Bombardier 2021 identified a school district that got immense recognition for its implementation and the use of restorative practice. For this school, the researcher purposely sampled the population to recruit 6 staff members. He recruited 6 members that had served in the district for at least 5 years since the restorative practice programs were rolled out. The 6 participants included an administrator, a paraprofessional, and teachers. Instrumentation or data sources. This section includes a detailed description of the instruments used to collect data. Bombardier 2021 collected data through semi-structured interviews. Each participant was interviewed individually. An interview guide approach was utilized, along with follow-up questions. The follow-up questions were meant to offer clarifications, and facilitate in-depth responses. The interview guide comprised of 20 pre-developed questions that were asked to each interviewee. The questions were open-ended, and this ensured every participant gave individual accounts of their views and experiences regarding restorative practice processes. Due to the COVID-19 containment measures, the interviews were done virtually in the Google Meet platform. Data collection procedures. This part of the methodology details the steps taken to conduct the study. Data was collected by the researcher through one-on-one virtual interviews. Using the interview guide approach, the researcher asked the same 20 questions to each participant. While each interview lasted an average of 40 minutes, he scheduled them at times convenient to each participant. Further, the researcher used dictation software to translate the interviews. The transcripts were then sent back to participants to review their responses. For accuracy purposes, the participants were allowed to give clarifying remarks for use in the final transcripts. Limitations. This section explains features of the study that can affect the results and their generalizability. Robertson Hyatt, 2019. One of the limitations of this study is that it only included school staff that worked at the school district for at least 5 years. The study had limitations in terms of the small sample size. The 6 participants are not representative of the whole population. Also, the study utilized 2 schools within a large district, and the staff interviewed were identified by the principals. As such, their interviews on the positive impacts of restorative practice could have been skewed. Lastly, the study does not capture the views of students and parents, which could have provided additional insights about restorative practice. Nature of the research. The nature of the research is one of the factors that inform the methodology and research design selected by for any particular study. The study by Bombardier 2021 is a qualitative case study research that employs the interview approach to collect data. The researcher gathered data by interviewing participants based on 20 pre-developed questions and other follow-up prompts. Participation was voluntary, and participants had the freedom of not answering any question they deemed unnecessary. They could also terminate their participation and withdraw at any time of their wish. IRB application requirements. Besides employing sound methodology, researchers should demonstrate outstanding ethical principles in their studies. The IRB requirements are meant to facilitate ethical practice by protecting participants from harm, stress, invasion of privacy, and potential embarrassment. Robertson Hyatt, 2021. Recruitment strategy informs. Using purposeful sampling, the researcher, with the help of the principal, recruited 6 participants who had worked in the district for at least 5 years. Site permissions. The researcher got permission from the superintendent to use the selected schools. The researcher also got permission from the school principal to access the school. Consent forms. Informed consent forms were sent to each participant using Google Form, sent via email. The consent form included a brief overview of the study and required participant details. Data collection instruments. 20 open-ended questions were used to interview the participants. To ensure the questions met the criteria, the author did a field test with one restorative justice professor at the New York University. Summary. In conclusion, all of the above sections are vital when writing a dissertation. The sections captured in the introduction, Chapter 1, sets the stage for the entire study. They began by providing a general overview of an area under study and ended up stating specific research questions. As for the methodology, Chapter 3 had detailed the research design, sample selection, instrumentation, data collection, data analysis, IRB requirements, and the limitation. The dissertation by Bombardier features most of the sections and successfully found associations between implementation of restorative practice and creation of positive relationships with students. While it noted the need for professional development during implementation, it also acknowledged the ability of restorative practice to improve school climate. Thank you.